visitors, and especially our honored veterans. Welcome to the 2024 Veterans Day Assembly. Thank you, veterans and guests, for taking time out of your day to attend our celebration in honor of your service to our country. The images that were on the slideshow as you entered the gymnasium were submitted by staff and students here at HMS. At HMS, we often ask the question, why? Why do we do this? Or why do we do that? Those pictures perfectly explain one of the reasons why we celebrate this day. So many of us have veterans that we too love and cherish.
Students, we politely ask that you show respect to our veterans and guests by remaining quiet throughout the assembly. Thank you for helping us to honor those who served in our military in order to secure all the freedoms that we have today and in the future.
To kick off our assembly, please welcome our local veterans from the American Legion Post 55 for the presentation of colors.
On your feet!
HMS students Bayla Hayes, Aurora McCoy, Jeray Sidnor, and Abigail Bixler will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sergeant, post the colors. We ask that at this time you please stand and remain standing for the playing of our national anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may please be seated. Thank you, students and our HMS band, for leading us in these time-honored traditions. At this time, we would like to welcome our principal at HMS, Ms. Utterback, who will speak about the sacrifices our veterans have made for our freedoms.
Good afternoon, students, teachers, and our guests and veterans. Thank you so much for taking the time to be able to celebrate this day with us. It's such an important honor to allow our students to see what you guys have given and what you've sacrificed. Veterans Day is a time to remember and honor the men and women who have worn the uniform and defended our freedoms. These individuals, many of whom faced great risks and hardships, stepped forward to protect our country. They left their families and comforts of home so we might enjoy peace and the many freedoms that we often take for granted. But today is more than just remembering. It's also about understanding the meaning of service and sacrifice. I want each of you to consider what it means to give so much for something bigger than yourself. Our veterans didn't serve because it was easy. They served because they believed in protecting our country and helping others. Some were stationed far from home, in places they've never even heard of before, facing challenges most of us can't even imagine. So why is it important for us to know about these sacrifices? It's because the freedoms we enjoy so much today are built on these sacrifices. The fact that we can gather here today in peace, attend school, even though I know you don't feel like it sometimes, and express ourselves freely, all of that was made possible because of their courage and dedication. I encourage each of you to think of ways to honor veterans in your own lives, not just today, but every day. You might volunteer to help veterans in our community, write a letter to say thank you, or even just take a moment to learn more about what they've done for you. Today, to our veterans here today, we say thank you. Thank you for your bravery, your service, and all of your many sacrifices. You remind us of what true dedication and courage looks like. Let's make it our mission as a school and as an individual to always remember and respect the sacrifices that make our freedoms possible. Thank you, veterans, for taking the time to come out today.
Thank you, Mrs. Utterback. A veteran of the Armed Forces of the United States is someone who has served in one of the branches of our military. Service to one's country involves being away from loved ones. As Mrs. Utterback said, there's training, deployment, and duty in combat or other extremely physically and or mentally challenging and demanding works. The term veteran is synonymous with respect, honor, and sacrifice. A veteran contributes to our national defense and broader mission of the U.S. Armed Forces. And today, November 11th, we celebrate our veterans, those who are present, those who are away, and those who have passed on for their courage, discipline, and dedication to a cause greater than themselves. Veterans, we appreciate your being here. And now, please turn your attention to our talented pirate singers for a heart-stirring expression of patriotism and pride, singing the song of the unsung heroes.
be a veteran means being part of the family. And that family is always there to look out for you and take care of you. What I'm mostly proud of is serving my country and serving alongside some of the greatest people that I've ever known. Working with fellow veterans, we all know our past experiences and we can be there for each other. We might not serve on the same battlefield or the same shops, but we know the hardships, we know things that may have happened overseas, and that we can relate to those and help each other out in times of need.
We feel the kinship, we feel the community around those who are veterans, and we're constantly reminded of those before us, the great things that they've done, and the way they conduct themselves now. We want to mimic and emulate that kind of effect. So we almost want to be in their shoes one day. That's how I feel. We're surrounded by some great veterans who've done some amazing things here. And though they may be in a different uniform, I still feel the brotherhood and sisterhood, in this organization.
Being a veteran means everything to me. I'm proud of it. I can tell what you serve. It gives me, I feel like special powers. Even though I'm wearing a uniform anymore, there's certain things I feel like I will always have in common, especially with someone, who serves. So there are no lines, between races or gender or anything like that. There's just this common bond.
I'm proud of the fact that I did serve. I could say that I've done something in my life other than just being respected. I served in the military. I stepped forward to help defend this nation, to serve this nation. If you're a veteran, working in PBO soldier, you're able to provide a unique insight. You actually have wanted to have used something. So I think veterans are very good to this organization.
A veteran is someone who is willing to, at any cost, write their own check. That person, he or she, is willing to put aside their own personal feelings or their own personal emotions and sacrifice everything they have for the better good of the country. My kids often, they'll ask, especially my older kids, they'll ask, Dad, why are you in the military? Why do you deploy all the time? We don't like you being away from home. The answer for me has always been, well, if I do it, then you don't have to.
I am Gunnery Sergeant David Henry, retired. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 20 years.
I'm Ronald Linnington. I served as a captain in Army Aviation, and I was on active duty for 11 years.
I am Master Sergeant Mark Daniel Krug, and I have served in the United States Army for the past 15 years.
I'm Captain Jonathan Giganni. I have served in the U.S. Army for the past 11 years.
I am Master Sergeant Marshall Petkoff, retired. I served 21 years in the United States Air Force.
I am Major Selena Robinson, retired. I served in the U.S. Army for 23 years.
Hello, my name is Lance Harvey. I teach 8th grade American history here at the middle school, and I'm honored to be here before you guys. I can't tell you how much your service means to me. And today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Medal of Honor. The Congressional Medal of Honor is the highest service award issued to members of the United States military, and it is awarded to those who, through conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life, above and beyond the call of duty. And throughout all wars and conflicts of the United States has been involved in, over the 30 million Americans who have served in our military, only 3,356 have been awarded this medal. And that is why I was surprised to find out that there are 2 Medal of Honor winners that are laid to rest in Hannibal, Missouri. And I wanted to talk a little bit about each one of those today because I think it's amazing that we have this kind of service amongst our community. So this is Arthur J. Forrest, and he's laid to rest at Grandview Burial Park out there south of town off 61. And I'm going to read his citation. He's a sergeant in the 354th Infantry, 89th Division, U.S. Army during World War I. And this is what his Medal of Honor citation reads. It says, when the advance of his company was stopped by bursts of fire from a nest of 6 enemy machine guns, without being discovered, Sergeant Forrest worked his way single-handed to a point within 50 yards of the machine gun nest. Charging single-handed, he drove out the enemy in disorder, thereby protecting the advance platoon from annihilating fire and permitting the resumption of the advance of his company. Now, these citations are notoriously understated because what Sergeant Forrest did when you talk about intrepidity and gallantry and risk of life and limb, he was being fired upon by 6 machine gun nests, and you really don't want that happening to you. And instead of running away, he ran towards the machine gun nests. And as he passed by the first one, somehow he didn't manage to get hit. He dropped 2 grenades in there and blew it out. Went to the next one, fought 4 guys with his bayonet and sent them scrambling, dropped his bayonet, pulled out his revolver, and sent the next one scrambling, and then jumped into a 4th and took 6 prisoners. Now, that is gallantry that I can't even imagine, and something that is truly honorable. And I can't imagine the fear and what would have gone through his head while he was doing that, but it is amazing that he was able to accomplish such a feat. The second one that we have is a guy named Thomas J. Higgins, and he's a little bit further back in his service. He was serving in the 99th Illinois Volunteer Infantry Regiment in the U.S. Army at the Siege of Vicksburg. He was with the Union Army, and he had enlisted in Barry, Illinois, and was sent down to Vicksburg, Mississippi. And during the Siege of Vicksburg, which, if you know anything about Civil War history, is one of the most important battles of the Civil War, their color bearer had been wounded, and so Sergeant Higgins volunteered to carry the colors, which means he could volunteer to carry the flag into battle. Now, during the Civil War, things kind of changed, and if you were the color bearer, then you were a main target for the enemy. And it was not, obviously if you're carrying the flag, it's really, really hard to fire and carry the flag at the same time. But he charged up the hill along with his unit, and they were repulsed by a bunch of fire from some Texans. And as his unit scrambled for cover and retreated, Sergeant Higgins refused to retreat with them, and he took the colors and he continued to go up the hill. And so the Texans, about 100 of them, aimed directly at him and began to fire, and they were unsuccessful in their attempts. And after a few volleys, the Texans put down their weapons and watched him advance all the way up to the hill where he planted the flag at the top. They captured him and they interrogated him. He gave them no information. Eventually he was exchanged for another prisoner, and later on he was nominated for the Congressional Medal of Honor by his captors. They were so impressed by his valor. And so these 2 men are both laid to rest here in Hannibal, and they're just 2 stories of gallantry that we know of, but there are countless stories of heroism that are represented by the good men and women that we are honoring here today. So I thank you for coming out, and we honor you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. If now, can we please turn our attention to the HMS Band? They will entertain us with the song Armed Forces on Parade. Veterans, it would be our honor if you could please stand when you hear your military branch song.
Thank you. United States, men and women have each answered the call to serve in their generation. The U.S. has been involved in 12 major conflicts spanning almost 250 years. The U.S. has over 18 million men and women who have served that are still living today. At this time, we would like to take the time to recognize these veterans for their service to their country during the era in which they served. Veterans, if you would please stand when you hear your global conflict in which you served. The students, I would ask that you would hold your applause until the end. If you served in the War on Terror, Iraq or Afghanistan from 2001 to the present, would you please stand? And it's right that we can't hold our applause. If you served in the Gulf War from 1990 to 1991, would you please stand? And if you served in the Vietnam War from 1955 to 1975. You stand if you served in the Korean War from 1950 to 1953. There might be a long shot. And hopefully, maybe, if you served in World War II from 1941 to 1945. There's not many left. If you get a chance, you should definitely say thank you for everything that you were willing to do and that you continue to do. We appreciate you. We'll never need enough gratitude to you for what you have done for us. Thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I say your name. Do solemnly swear. Support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. And to bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. And I will obey. The orders of. The President of the United States. And the orders of. Those officers appointed over me, according to regulations, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.
We celebrate Veterans Day on the anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice that began on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The timing of this holiday is quite deliberate in terms of historical fact. But somehow it always seems quite fitting to me that this day comes deep in autumn, when the colors are muted and the days seem to invite contemplation. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise, but most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. And all we can do is remember. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. In memory of those who gave the last full measure of devotion, may our efforts to achieve lasting peace gain strength. Let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and born with their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died.
In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will find our country and all who serve it. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
At this time, we would like to acknowledge the winner of the Patriot Pen essay. The Patriots Pen is a national contest that coincides with Veterans Day and is designed to allow middle school students to express their opinions on a patriotic theme. This year's theme is My Voice in Democracy. Our Hannibal Middle School winner was chosen from the submitted entries, and in part, the student noted that even though he is not yet able to vote, his voice in our democracy is a right protected by the Constitution and defended by our armed forces. He is allowed to protest, contact officials, and rally in support of agendas or issues. He stated in part that his voice in America's democracy can always be heard. Our 2024 Patriot Pen winner is Elliot Seiler. Elliot, would you please come forward? Elliot's in the building. Thank you, Elliot. Let's give him another round of applause.
Many of our veterans have had an opportunity to join an honor flight. This is a special program for veterans to travel to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., to see memorials that commemorate their service. Our own Mr. Shulnick got the chance to travel with his grandfather earlier this year, and he's now going to tell us about his experience. Please welcome Mr. Shulnick.
Thank you. As they said, good afternoon, my name is Mr. Shulnick, and as some of you heard, I am one of social studies teachers here at the middle school. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for being here, and hope that you have enjoyed assembly so far. This is by far my favorite assembly that we do all year, and hope that it has at least shown a small portion of gratitude to the veterans that we can express. We would like to express, shown a small portion of gratitude that we would like to express to you. We wish we could express more. As the son of a Marine and the grandson of a Vietnam War vet and a World War II vet, you can see why I personally hold this day so closely to me. Today I have the privilege to talk to you about the honor flight. Just out of curiosity, how many of you veterans or even you students have ever heard of the honor flight? Awesome. All right. So I would highly recommend that if you've not been on the honor flight, that you veterans apply for it, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Honor flight was created with a simple yet powerful mission, honoring our nation's veterans by bringing them to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials built to commemorate their service and sacrifice. The Honor Flight Network was co-founded by Jeff Miller and Earl Morse. While initially focused on only America's World War II veterans, Honor Flight Network now also includes those who served in the military during the Korean and Vietnam War, along with veterans of any service area who may be critically ill. Transporting approximately 22,500 veterans annually, Honor Flight Network has flown over 300,000 veterans to Washington, D.C. since its inception. The main purpose of the trip is not only to honor our veterans, but to also give them an opportunity to see the memorials that have been constructed in their honor, including the Vietnam, Korean, and World War II memorials. Excuse me while I replace the batteries. Test. Okay. So the memorials that we went and saw, as you guys will see on the screen, was the Vietnam, the Korean, the World War II memorial, and we also were able to travel to Arlington National Cemetery. And then while we were there, we got to see the changing of the guard ceremony, which is definitely an awesome experience. To say the least. It's something that one should not take lightly. It's something that we learned very quickly, that if you step 1 foot out of line, they will put the fear of God in you. They don't care who you are. So definitely an awesome experience for that. For me, what made it even more special was the fact that I got to experience it with my grandfather. Out of all the people in my family, he chose me to go with him, which is a huge honor. And so there will be pictures on the screen, as you guys will see, to kind of show our time together. My grandfather served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. His crew was tasked with traveling up the Saigon River. For those of you that are familiar with the Vietnam War, that was not an easy task. And some of the stories that he began to share with me were stories that may keep you up at night. For instance, one of the stories he shared was while they were traveling up the river, they were tasked periodically with throwing grenades over the side of the boat to make sure that the enemy didn't sneak up on them. That's not something you want to hear. It kind of makes you not sleep at night. These are the type of stories you begin to hear on this trip. And these are the things that the men and women who fought in the military had to go through to fight for our freedoms and the freedoms of others. We had the privilege of eating lunch with a Korean vet and learned that he was the youngest of 4 brothers. His 3 older brothers served in World War II, and he made a promise to himself and his family that he was not going to be the only brother who didn't serve his country. The last story from our trip that I would like to share is one that is just what movies are made out of. A man that had served in the Vietnam War had been shot, causing him to fall into a ditch. He lay there for 3 days until he finally heard voices coming towards him. He knew that if he didn't call out for help, he would certainly die. He didn't care if it was the enemy or not. All of a sudden, he felt the presence pick him up out of the ditch and say, "I got you, brother." Fast forward, this veteran was on an honor flight, and while at the World War II memorial, he heard a voice that was familiar to him. He searched through the people to find that it was the voice of the soldier that had saved his life back so many years ago, and was actually participating in another honor flight. The stories that I've shared to you today are just a small glimpse as to what it's like to experience an honor flight. And the reason why the honor flight exists is to hear the stories of these men and women who went through the worst of conditions so that we may have the freedoms we hold so deeply. I cannot thank my grandfather enough for allowing me to go with him on this amazing once-in-a-lifetime journey. To be able to experience something like this with him is something that I will hold with me for the rest of my life, and is something that I would not trade for the world. One of the best parts was the coming home ceremony, where they bring the veterans through the airport, and they get the opportunity to be welcomed home by their loved ones. For those of you that are familiar with military history, not a lot of veterans got this opportunity, especially those who served in the Vietnam War. So to be able to see just these people in an airport parade them from what felt like the farthest gate away from the exit and have us walk all the way through, and people we were led by bagpipes, we were led by drummers, everything, celebrating those men and women who did not get that when they came home. So veterans, if you've not had the opportunity to go, please, I urge you to apply. You will not regret it. And if you need someone to go with you, I am available. I would be more than willing to go with you. Students, take this time to think about what if your veteran asked you to go with them. Remember, it's not about you. It's about those that have served. Now, I do have the esteemed pleasure of welcoming our guest speaker today, who is Staff Sergeant Sean Phillips. Just a little backstory about Staff Sergeant Phillips. He enlisted in the United States Army in August of 2014 as a military police officer. Upon completion of his training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Staff Sergeant Phillips was assigned to the 1139th Military Police Company. During his time with the 1139th, Staff Sergeant Phillips spent time in Poland assisting in joint military training operations in support of Anaconda 16. In 2007, Staff Sergeant Phillips was deployed to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, where he worked detainee operations in several different camps located in Cuba. Upon his return to the United States in 2018, Staff Sergeant Phillips returned to the 1139th Military Police Company, where he would be activated to assist the state of Missouri during unrest, protests, during 2020. Later in 2020, Staff Sergeant Phillips moved to Missouri Recruiting Battalion in Jefferson City, and in 2022, Staff Sergeant Phillips and his family moved to Los Angeles, where Staff Sergeant Phillips spent a short time as a platoon sergeant for the 40th MP Company in Los Alamitos, California. Since returning back to Missouri and the Missouri Army National Guard in 2023, Staff Sergeant Phillips served in the 1136th Military Police Company in Springfield, and recently rejoined the Recruiting Battalion of Missouri, now serving the Hannibal, Missouri area. Would you please join me in welcoming Staff Sergeant Phillips.
All right, I'm gonna go mic off. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah!
Yeah? All right. Hey, first, before I begin, vets, I have done quite a few of these where I've been a speaker at. I've attended a couple of them, but seriously, we need to give a round of applause to the Hannibal Middle School. This is one of the best, most well-organized Veterans Day assemblies I've ever attended, so give yourselves a round of applause before I All right, so, middle schoolers, thank you guys so much. You are very well behaved. I don't know what kind of bribe you guys were given by your teachers, but seriously, thank you guys so much for the respect that you guys have shown everyone here today. So Veterans Day is an extremely important holiday, especially for me. I've had a lot of family members in my lifetime that have served, whether it was World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Desert Storm, and the War on Terror. But the ending of World War I was actually 106 years ago to this day, where Germany conceded to the Allies in 1918 on this day. And in World War I, there were 116,000 United States citizens that died during World War I. If you ever get the opportunity to go to Kansas City, they have a wonderful World War I museum and exhibit that I strongly encourage you to go to and enjoy. There's a lot to learn, and I saw that in the crowd today we have a lot of Vietnam War vets, and from the bottom of my heart, I know that things were really rough when many of you guys and gals got home, and so if you haven't heard it enough, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you did, and I'm sorry that you were not given the recognition and the respect that you deserve when you guys got home. But now, I kind of want to get into the speech that I've prepared for you guys. So, again, thank you for this warm welcome on this Veterans Day. And sometimes it really doesn't feel real to me that I fall into this category. Over just 10 short years ago, I began my journey as a dumb young man, ready to take on any challenge in front of me. And 10 years later, I find myself to be an equally dumb 28-year-old adult who is constantly seeking the next great adventure. Putting it into words, what it means to me to be a veteran can be difficult. My experience was so unique to me, and each and every other veteran that joins us here today, I'm sure that you have a lifetime of memories in your own mind. And I'm sure that over the years you've reflected, laughed, cried, and reminisced on the times that you've spent serving this beautiful country. A country that is truly one of the greatest experiments that this world has ever seen. We are by no means perfect, and we owe a lot to the people that came before us. I often think about the 13-year-old farmer boy who was raised by his parents in a cabin, maybe a small town or village in the northeastern part of this country, whose family had come to a new world to join these new colonies and give this whole America thing a try. That same kid would become a soldier the day he would hear Paul Revere scream, "The British are coming." I think of the nerves that he might have had the first time that he saw a redcoat. He was probably cold, muddy, wet, and afraid, not understanding that his sacrifice and bravery on that day would be the reason that I get to speak to all of you today. I think of the young men that went from slaves to soldiers, fighting against the evils of slavery that tore our nation apart. Men who fought for a country that would still not grant them the same human rights that we cherish today. The sacrifices they made then can help put us into perspective the same rights that we fight for today. I think of the young guys in high school, all crowding around a radio listening to how we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, not knowing what would come next. To fast forwarding a few weeks to them kissing their mothers and their loved ones behind. Entire high school classes of men and women piling into a crowded bus to a new life as a soldier. Some of them wouldn't come home. It's not something that we put into perspective all of the time. I think about how uncomfortable I get when my own boots get wet, and I get frustrated and I get annoyed. And I think what it must have been like to be 17, cold and wet, jumping out of a boat onto the beaches of Normandy, June 6, 1944, looking around at my new friends that I had made and seeing that some of them wouldn't make it off the boat with me. I can feel their heartbeat in my own because I know what it's like to be scared. I know what it's like to be nervous. Some of those men and women did not have the option to say no to the task that was at hand. It was forced upon them by Uncle Sam himself. But they fought. And it's because they fought and won that I get to speak to you all here today. With the distractions that we have, it's difficult to put things into perspective. We don't all know what it's like to wait weeks at a time, day after day, waiting for a letter to come in the mail for us. A letter from mom or dad letting us know how proud of you they are, or that they're praying for you every single day. Or a letter from that special someone letting you know that they were waiting for you to come home. See, sometimes those letters didn't come, or sometimes those letters did not come with good news. But regardless, the men and women that you see sitting before you today read that letter, packed it up, marched on, and completed their mission. I think of the events like the World Trade Center attacks. I remember being 5 years old in my kindergarten class, watching Channel 1 News on a TV that my teacher rolled into the classroom every morning. I remember her switching the channel over to the local news and crying as we watched the first tower burn and the second plane strike the other building. I think about every man and woman that walked into a recruiter station in the days following, ready to fight and give their lives to ensure that no one would attack us like that again. I remember being a kid whose dad deployed a few short years after those attacks. And I remember my mom. Raising 2 kids was not an easy task. See, my sister, great kid. Me, not so much. But I tried to think about what it was like to be my dad. Away from us, trusting that we would be safe. As he worked tirelessly in the Afghanistan sun, I remember the letters that we sent. I remember driving to the Iowa National Guard headquarters just to get a few minutes to speak with him on the phone. And I remember the happy tears that my mom would let out as she was so relieved to hear his voice, that they were going to be okay. And to my father, something that I've never acknowledged, and I don't think he was ever given the credit or recognition that he deserved, but in a time where our men and women were deployed overseas, and he found himself in a land where people would have killed him for the cross that he wore on his uniform, I think it takes courage to speak to the world about Jesus, and it takes a lot more courage to take his message directly to the enemy. Amen. I remember again being a freshman kid in high school. A short, plump, pimple-covered teenager. I spent most of my mornings banging my head against my locker because I was so confused at what puberty was doing to my body. And the only person that I actually felt comfortable talking to about it was back in Afghanistan for a second time. And I think about my own military experience. See, I remember when I left for basic training. There was frost on the ground in early January. I kissed and hugged my family goodbye, and my journey began. I made friends, brothers, and sisters that I will never forget. I got yelled at so many times by my drill sergeants, it made up for it for the 2 years that my dad was away. And then I remember my own deployment. I was 21 years old, relatively handsome, all right with the ladies. But there I was, crying on an airplane because I knew I was going to miss my mom and my sister. I spent my time away reflecting on my life and what I was willing to sacrifice to ensure that I was the best one for my job. I truly do cherish America, and it's not always the most glamorous job. You don't become famous for being a soldier. You don't make millions of dollars. However, someone has to do this job, and I know for a fact that I am the best for that job, and that's why I love to do it. You see, for some, joining the military is a lifelong dream. The calling within them starts as a kid when they would play war with their friends. I remember when I was a kid, I would play war with my friend Jacob. We pretended sticks that we found in our backyards were our weapons, and each time, every mission we went on involved saving our imaginary girlfriends. And I'm not sure if I actually wanted to be a soldier or James Bond, but either way, the spark was there. But for me, that spark died down. As I got older, I never would have thought the military was going to be the best thing for me. And then one day, a few months after I graduated high school, that spark came back. I was ready, and today I stay ready. As I look around me at my fellow veterans, I can't begin to express my thanks for everything that you have all done. No matter how small, some of you might have done a quick 3 years and got out. Some of you were drafted, and some of you volunteered. Some of you deployed multiple times to foreign lands where they don't speak English. You missed birthdays, weddings, funerals, and births. It was hard. But because you made that sacrifice, I get to speak to you today. So thank you. I thank you. I thank your families. I thank your friends that you met along the way. We are enshrined in a brotherhood and sisterhood forever, and I can truly say I am proud to march amongst the same ranks as you. For those of you that join us here today, I thank the future veterans in the stands. Maybe you're not a soldier today. Maybe you're that same confused kid trying to figure out your life like I was. Or maybe you're a young woman who's getting ready to take on college, ACTs, all of that stuff in the next couple of years. There are some of you here that will serve. And if I never get the opportunity again to tell you, I want to say thank you for your service. Thank you all for taking time to celebrate veterans today. If you have parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family, friends, anyone who has served this incredible country, please take time to listen to them. I promise, as someone that's been there, it doesn't always seem like the most fun to go and listen to something that a stranger has to tell you. But I can assure you, listen to the stories of the veterans that have come before you. You will learn something. Because at the end of the day, those stories won't last forever. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Veterans, God bless you. Students, God bless all of you. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
To complete our Veterans Day assembly, the song Taps is typically played as a call to remember those who have given their lives to the service of the United States. Please welcome Hannibal graduate and Marine Corps veteran Ken Cummins performing Taps. Out of respect, can everyone please stand?
please remain standing. As our assembly comes to a close, we once again welcome the American Legion to retire our colors.
Retire your colors. And look. Right? Face. American flag. Retire.
We now ask that you give a final round of applause to all of our